Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown. And just a couple days ago, the state has decided to seek the death penalty against Bryan Kohberger. He is the one they have charged with killing four Idaho students. Some of the families have expressed happiness that the death penalty is going to be in play here because that's what he deserves, they believe. Um, but I think it's a bad idea. And you may wonder about that because anybody who knows me knows I am not anti-death penalty, especially for cases where there's no question, serial homicide cases where a serial killer, he's been charged with 10 homicides and there's massive evidence. I personally think we can dispatch him as quickly as possible and not let him enjoy many years of life in prison, having FBI profilers visit with him, getting books written about him, giving interviews, getting online with the inmate dating program and getting all these women to fall in love with him, and sometimes even getting married and getting conjugal rights and producing children while in prison. Yes, I'm really much find that offensive, especially for the families, because when you have a situation where someone has killed your loved one in such a brutal and horrific way, and then they get to live on and smile and laugh and have some kind of life that your loved one doesn't have at all. No, that's not right. And when it's overwhelming evidence against that person that they are that kind of horrible creature, I say, yes, he deserves the needle. I'm good with that. Take him out. We shouldn't have to pay for his life at all. And by the way, I always point this out. That serial killer, he believes in the death penalty. Why? Because he enacted the death penalty against every one of his victims. And there was never a time where a trial happened for those poor victims that they deserved to get the death penalty. He decided he was the judge and jury for each one of those victims. So he believes in the death penalty. And I say any killer who believes in the death penalty, we should honor them with that death penalty. All right, so now let's get to Bryan Kohberger. Why do I think it's a bad idea to go for the death penalty with him? Well, I've already seen the comments coming out all over the internet. People who think he's innocent. Yes, they do. They think he's innocent. Let me give you some of the reasons they think he's innocent. They believe that DNA on the knife sheath may not be his. Even if it's 1 in octillion people, could only 1 in octillion people could have that DNA. Oh, there might be maybe something past maybe octillion and 1. I don't even understand that particular number, but maybe there's an octillion and 1 person who happens to live in Outer Mongolia. Must be that guy who just happened to have traveled to Idaho on the exact day he was rolling around over there. And so because of that, we think it might not be him. Oh, yes. And what's another reason? Oh, the defense is already saying there's other male DNA there. Ah, you see? So that means it might not be him. Well, there's male DNA in the house probably because men have been in the house. They have been there for parties and for having fun having fun in the house, shall we say. They could have left all kinds of DNA, including touch DNA. It could be everywhere. But it wasn't on the knife sheath. All right. So, but they're going to say, see, there was other DNA in the house. And then we're going to get, the police planted it. That's going to be a biggie. The police planted that DNA because they want to close that case down. They couldn't have that case hanging over their heads. It was too much publicity, too much media attention. Oh, no. Therefore, the police planted it. Sure, they did. And then there's going to be all kinds of other things the defense will put into the case during the trial that will confuse the jury. And here is a problem I have with the jury system. I've said over and over, I prefer a professional jury system and not a civilian jury system because, as I used my own quote, civilian jury system is getting 12 people off a bus stop. They may be 12 wonderful people, nice people, hardworking people, everything good about those people, but they have zero training because the defense is going to make sure of that. I will never be on a jury. They'll never let me on. They will have zero training. They do not understand crime scene analysis. They do not understand DNA. They do not know what detectives know, what profilers know. They know none of this because they've had zero training. And attorneys can just run circles around them, confusing them, throwing things out there that make them think, oh, well, maybe it's not him. Maybe it is somebody else. And that in their mind then raises what they think is reasonable doubt. They are unable to look a lot of times at the totality of the evidence and figure out that that means this guy did it. Now, mind you, I'm not saying he did at this point. I'm saying the evidence, I think the prosecution has a strong case. And in court, if this case is as strong as I think it is, yes, they should find him guilty. But juries are a crapshoot. You roll the dice. Sometimes you get a 7. Sometimes you get snake eyes. The defense tries to get people on that they hope will give that snake eyes. All you need is one. And how do you get 12 people who do not understand? Most of them do not actually understand any of this because they've had zero training. How do you get all 12 to agree? And this is where it has to be almost a slam dunk case to get that to happen, especially when you're talking about the death penalty. And here's why I think that's a mistake. All right. Problem is, if it's life in prison, some of the jury will be, maybe the jury be okay with that. It's like, okay, well, if I'm wrong and he didn't do it, at least he could get his appeals and he's just going to get life. Maybe it'll take 20 years for him to get out, but it'll be just life. But when you're talking about the death penalty, when you're on that jury and you find him guilty, you are in essence, well, you're sentencing him to death. And some people think that I am killing him. And maybe if they absolutely knew it's Ted Bundy, they wouldn't mind killing him. But if they have any little teeny doubt in their head because they are confused by the defense attorney and they're not really sure because they just don't know, maybe their emotions have gotten all involved and all that stuff, they say, oh, I just can't. I can't find him guilty because I just got the smidgen of a doubt and I would be killing him. That's why I think we need a professional jury that doesn't have the emotions and understands how the evidence is and can't be fooled by attorneys. I believe we need that professional jury system. How the pool of jurors would work, I don't know. People like me would be in the pool. And maybe people could be trained to be professional jurors who go through all the processes of learning about crime scene analysis and so on and so forth. And then we'd have people coming in who are used to doing this, who aren't going to let emotions get in the way and also are not going to be just have no clue. Just think about it. If you had if I were on a jury to determine whether NASA should send that rocket into space because of some technicalities of their engineering system, it would be stupid to have 12 people like me trying to figure that out and having different engineers come in and tell us, oh, that bolt is in the wrong place. What do I know? Do I believe this engineer or that engineer, this expert or that expert? I don't know. So then you go with who's ever more convincing, which is not necessarily who is telling the truth and who is, but if you are a professional, you have more of a clue who is, trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And you will understand the totality of the evidence and where it should lead and whether you should have that reasonable doubt or not. So I believe in that professional jury. But here we're going to have a civilian jury and you're going to put death penalty on the table. You risk not having him found guilty at all if he is guilty. Just have one or two people who just can't go there and they will find him not guilty if he did it. And if he did do it, and how awful would that be? So I personally think they should have stuck with life in prison. And the last thing I want to say about this is the other reason it becomes a problem is that the Innocence Project, which I am not fond of, I am totally fond of the Innocence Project when they pick truly innocent people to fight for. I'm okay with that. But I found too many cases where they will look for any technicality, anything they can find to free a guilty person because they are against the death penalty. And that's their agenda. They're against the death penalty. So if they can find any reason to get him off of something once he's been convicted and he's on death row, well, then they will be showing up with their huge media campaigns to free Bryan Kohberger, which will be quite appalling if he is indeed guilty of the crime, which the prosecution believes he is. And right at this point in time, I'm going to say I'm a pretty high percentage at this point that I believe he is guilty as well. But we shall see what happens in a court of law. Will the civilian jury be able to accomplish what they should accomplish? I don't know. I have nothing against the people on the jury, and it's a horrible thing for them to have to go through, to have to see those horrifying pictures, to have to live the rest of their lives with that in their heads, to have to give up their time and their energy and have to sit through a lot of the boring parts of the trial too. It's a horribly difficult job, and I respect every juror who's sitting there. I just don't think it works really well. But I just hope these 12 jurors off the bus stop, I just hope they got 12 great jurors off a bus stop. That's all I can say. But it's been driving me crazy for years, because it's not, to me, it's not the way you should pursue justice, by having people who are untrained try to figure this stuff out. We wouldn't do it in any other field, but we do it in a courtroom. It's crazy. I think it's nuts. So that's my thoughts on that, and let's see what happens. If you haven't been to the channel before, please do subscribe, and I'll see you next time with whatever else comes up. Bye-bye.